Not every man you see or meet on this planet is normal. Some people say all men are the same, but I beg to differ in some cases. Never get excited or carried away because a man said he loves you. True love shouldn't hurt intentionally, but most love these days do. Some men have proven time and time again that they hate women and they don't care about us. Some men are with women because the society expects them to do so. If a man threatens your life, that shouldn't be taken lightly. Even the Bible says, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh.
Never underestimate a man who would tell you that he'll kill you. Because what will happen is he will talk himself into actually killing you. And then once he murders you, he will begin to formulate lies in how it was accidental or the gun just went off or, try to distance himself from his actions. And next, what will happen is he's probably going to get charged with manslaughter. And then he's probably going to get 20 years in which abusers tend to work well in prison because they're scared of other men. So they end up getting out in about 8 years, and they may get a $10,000 fine and anger management. And your punishment for loving someone who doesn't love themselves is death. Never underestimate a man who will tell you and others that he will kill you. In fact, if you know the man that you're with has a gun, that is a red flag and you need to leave, especially if you know that there is a history of physical and or emotional abuse. The moral of this story is love does not hurt. And if love hurts, it's not love in the first place.
Hello fam, how you all doing? How is your weekend going? Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. Thanks a lot for your support. Today's video is on men's evil thoughts towards women and a story of how a man unalived his wife and his son because his wife asked for a divorce. Make sure you watch to the end so you don't miss out on that particular story. Let's start off with this evil TikTok trend that happened in 2022. Men were coming on TikTok saying the evil things they plan to do to women. Imagine I take you to the Grand Canyon for our first date and push you off the cliff and you effing die. Imagine we went on a beach date and I just chucked you in the water, kept you under, and you just died. LOL. There's really nothing funny about that.
Granted, I know I'm an older lady on this app, and there are a lot of things that I don't get and things that aren't for me, and that's fine. And there are definitely trends that I look at and I'm like, that's definitely not for me. But this one is so fucking troubling. I have to ask, am I missing something? Because I don't think I am. If you click on the sound that's attached to this, you will see so many disturbing videos of young men and boys saying the craziest shit, and then it all ends in, and then you are unalive. Let me just show you a few. Pause to read. I will never tell my daughters not all men. As far as I'm concerned, it is all men until you prove otherwise.
The next video coming up is a video of a man that promised a woman that they were going hiking. Rather, he took her mountain climbing. She wasn't prepared for it, and he abandoned her at the top of the mountain. Let's have a look.
I didn't know we were doing this. You said there wouldn't be a ledge.
Okay, have fun.
Beware of men who will risk your safety and well-being for their own enjoyment. This woman posted several TikToks about the quote-unquote hike a man took her on, which then turned out to be a Via Ferrata, a climbing route in the Swiss Alps. She says she's not outdoorsy, that she hasn't gone on a hike in 3 years, and that he told her that there wouldn't be a ledge, which is an audacious and dangerous lie to tell someone when you take them climbing. Now she tries to make light of the whole situation by making a joke about how he left her there at the end because he wanted to go base jumping, literally diving off a cliff and abandoning her, but that is actually what happened. You can tell even the commenters are in disbelief, asking if this is a joke account, because it is outrageously dangerous to take an unprepared newbie on a via ferrata without her knowledge or consent. You can see here how truly steep the fall would be if she was to slip, and people have severely injured themselves and even fallen to their deaths on the via ferratas in Switzerland because of equipment failure or because of equipment misuses, which brings me to my next point. He didn't even ensure she's wearing proper equipment. This is what she should be wearing. And notice how she's not even wearing hiking boots, because she likely doesn't have any, because she does not go hiking. At minimum, she should be wearing a helmet and she should be wearing gloves, but she isn't, because she didn't know he'd send her on a climbing trail. And he's gleeful about it too.
You said there wouldn't be a ledge.
Okay, have fun.
Okay.
He's enjoying her distress, and she's trying to laugh through it and be cute about it. A man who acts like this does not have your best interests at heart. He does not care about your wishes, needs, your feelings, even your physical safety at that. And what makes me even more sad for her is that she says at the beginning she's never gone for a hike in Switzerland. This is her first time. He went out of his way to ensure she'd be scared and worried the whole time. What could be a wonderful, cool memory is just going to be a reminder of how this guy deceived her by taking her climbing instead of hiking and made her do it completely unprepared. This is willful neglect. He's laughing at her discomfort, telling her to have fun, while she points out, "You didn't tell me we were doing this." The fear and humiliation he's making her experience is intentional. It is meant to do three things. 1, make her feel scared and exhausted to break her down. 2, it functions as a litmus test. He is testing how much he can push your boundaries, how much nonsense you're willing to accept from him. If he takes you climbing without your knowledge or consent, will you do it? If he leaves you at the peak to dive off a cliff, will you make jokes for him about it? Or will you call him out on it? Will you refuse? Will you tell him why that's not okay and why you won't do it? He's taking your temperature to see where your boundaries are and how malleable they might be for him. Which brings me to the third reason. He does it to bind her closer to him. Have you ever heard about how you should take someone on an adrenaline-charged activity, like going on a roller coaster ride, so that they associate the exhilarating rush of endorphins with your presence? This is the flip side of the same coin. He caught her off guard and put her in a terrifying and dangerous situation in which she may well have felt like her safety depended on him, even though he's the one that put her through danger to begin with. The high arousal caused by fear and danger can plant the first seed for a trauma bond to take root. I don't blame this woman for wanting to be a good sport or a cool girl and going along with it. This man does not have her best interests at heart, and this is an excellent example for why having strong boundaries is crucial. This man does not care about her feelings or her well-being.
In her narration, she didn't make mention of the man testing the lady's boundaries. That was why he took her up the mountain instead of going hiking and all that. Men do that. Men test women's boundaries. They want to know where your boundary starts and ends, and then they test it by pushing it so you can expand your boundary, so you can allow more of their nonsense behavior. They do it intentionally. Let's hear what this lady has to say.
You do know he's trying you. He has an attitude with you for no reason. He's trying to intimidate you. He's asking you for money. He's trying to use you. He tells you he doesn't celebrate birthdays or holidays. He's trying to avoid buying gifts for you. He gets mad at you when you ask questions. He's trying to train you. He flips the script when he has wronged you. He's trying to manipulate you. He calls you out your name when he's joking with you. He's trying to see if it's okay to belittle you. That's what men do. They try you, they test you, then they categorize you and decide if they really want to be with you. Stay woke. Be smart, night smart, choose wisely, that nation. And remember, I told you.
Ladies, how do you feel comfortable going hiking with a man you barely know? How do you feel comfortable being with a stranger in a secluded place? It is your responsibility to protect your life, protect yourself. It's nobody's responsibility but yours. Some men out there are damaged. They are serial killers disguised as boyfriends. They are psychopaths. You have to be careful.
Men need to stop joking about how they almost killed their wives. The title reads like a confession. He took his iron-deficient wife, who suffers from sickle cell anemia, hiking up the Rainbow Mountain Trek in Peru, then recorded her suffering all the way through, and posted it on the internet with a funny sound to gaslight her and everyone else to make sure that they all laughed about her misery just like he did. Commodus then informed her that nothing about this is funny and that he could have killed her by taking her in such a high altitude without oxygen. She then took the fall for him.
Everyone is ripping into my poor husband, but we both didn't know that doing this hike could kill me. This is how we found out that you can die if you have sickle cell and go in high altitudes.
When men endanger women in nature like this, the number one excuse is always obliviousness and weaponized incompetence, and women are expected to accept that men just aren't wired like we are. He just didn't realize that she was miserable while he literally filmed her blacking out. Men aren't stupid, and this is his wife. Even if he didn't know that people with sickle cell can die in high altitudes, it would have required very little research for him to realize that this isn't safe, and he should have turned around the second he saw that she was generally miserable if he cared about her. If he just looked up the website of this mountain, he'd have learned that the Rainbow Mountain Trek in Peru reaches its peak at 1,500 feet, which is almost half the height of Mount Everest, and that even people who don't suffer from his wife's disease can experience altitude sickness, which he references. This is also why some travel companies bring an oxygen tank. Not all travel companies do this, however, and clearly whoever he booked with did not, or else he would have shown himself as the knight in shining armor, providing his wife with oxygen to save her from the mortal danger he put her in to begin with. And we know she would have needed it, because he shows her blacking out. There is no plausible deniability here. Even though he tries to claim otherwise, there is no way he didn't learn this when he booked the trip. I only spent 5 minutes looking up this mountain, and it states everywhere that this hike is very strenuous for most people and that even healthy people can suffer from altitude sickness.
I don't completely agree with her thoughts on the mountain hiking. That man and his wife have been traveling around the world. She might be right with her own point of view to an extent. I really don't know the heart of the man. I don't know his actual thoughts towards his wife. But what I perceive is complete ignorance. She did make mention of weaponized incompetence, and from her argument, she did believe that it was a man's responsibility to protect the woman, which makes sense. He is supposed to protect the woman. It's part of his duty as a husband. That protection statement is the reason I inserted this video. I just want to make some things clear to us women. In as much as the society makes us believe that it's a man's responsibility to protect women, we should look out for ourselves. We should protect ourselves the best way we can. We should not hand over everything that has to do with our life and protection onto a man. Don't do that. As an individual, as a human being, it is your responsibility to look out for yourself and protect yourself, be it in a relationship, in marriage, or in singlehood. If that lady wasn't expecting her husband to completely protect her and do things for her, probably should have known what to look out for as a sickle cell patient. A little research would have gone a long way. Isn't she supposed to know that higher altitude does have a negative effect on sickle cell patients? The higher the altitude, the lesser the oxygen in the air, which does have a negative effect on the blood cells. In higher altitude, the body has less oxygen. The body suffers from oxygen inadequacy, which affects patients with sickle cell. The blood struggles with that because the blood needs adequate oxygen to function. But in sickle cell patients, once there is not enough oxygen in the blood, the red blood cells begin to form the sickled shape, which can lead to crisis. I would expect this to be basic knowledge for sickle cell patients, because I would expect them to know what to do and what not to do to prevent crisis. I'm surprised anyways.
25 years ago today, I came home from a date to find that nearly my entire family had been unalived while I was gone. This is that story. Trigger warning, this is a post about domestic violence. So if that is something that would bother you, please keep scrolling. July 10th, 1999. It started out like any other day. I was 17 years old. I had slept in. It was probably about 11:30, and I woke up and heard my parents arguing. Days earlier, my mom had announced that she was finally filing for divorce after 23 years in an incredibly abusive marriage. My dad was an alcoholic. He was not physically abusive, but he was incredibly mentally and emotionally abusive to all of us. When he was good, he was really good. But when he was bad, he was absolutely awful. He had told my mom for years and years that if she ever tried to leave him, he would kill her. And he would hide her in a cave in McDowell County, West Virginia. and no one would ever find her. And that morning when I heard them arguing, she ended it by saying, I am going to leave. And if you're going to do that, you're going to just have to do it. And he said to her, I'm not going to kill you. And it was the last thing I ever heard him say. He left the house, stating that he was going to take his belongings to his mother's house. That's where he was going to be staying after he left. And so he left and was gone all day. I stayed, I talked to my mom. I was getting ready to go on a date that night. I had switched my shift at the local grocery store and had worked the prior night in exchange for that night off so that I could go to a neighboring town, for a nice dinner and some shopping with my boyfriend. My mom had these rings that had been passed down to her, through 3 generations. They were her great-great-grandmother's rings that had come over on the boats from England with her. And I asked every single day if I could wear them, and my mom would never let me. But that day, she told me I could borrow them. I didn't even ask. And I was so excited that I could borrow and wear those rings on my date. And I crossed my heart and promised that I would give them back to her just the minute that I got home. But I never got to keep that promise. While I was gone, my dad came back and had a GUN with him. And he unalived my brother, who was severely physically challenged, unalived him, and then my mom. And my little sister heard this going on and ran into the kitchen where it was happening. And he also attacked her. She got away and went and hid until she heard him going upstairs. Once she heard him going upstairs, she ran out, stopped to check to make sure that there was nothing she could do for either my brother or my mom. And then she ran out of the house and to a next door neighbor's to call 911. This was in 1999. It was before cell phones. So I was gone. I was on my date. I came home and the road was blocked off. And I couldn't get home to make curfew. So we went around to try a different route, and the road was blocked off there too. Couldn't get home. So we went down to the gas station down the road, and I went in and I asked the gentleman if I could use the phone to call home, to let my mom know that the road was blocked off and I couldn't make curfew. And the phone just rang and rang and rang. And I hung up and I tried again, and it rang and rang. No answer. And I told my boyfriend, I said, that's really weird. No one's answering. And all of a sudden, this look of realization just crossed the gas station guy's face. And he said, honey, where do you live? And I said, down the road here in that little green house. And he said, baby, get to the roadblock and tell the police officers who you are. And right then I knew. And so I went to the roadblock. And I got out and I told him who I was. And they had me get back in my boyfriend's truck, and they gave us a police escort to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, I went in to this little room, where another officer came in to let me know that my dad had unalived my mom and my brother, and that my sister was on her way into surgery to save her life. And I remember looking at the cop and I said, and what about him? And he said, he's gone too. It has been 25 years since I've heard my mom's voice. 25 years since my dad took my entire world away. And my entire life has been split into two, the before and the after. And not just big things, little things. You know, I was watching Friends with my husband one night, and he was like, what year was this? What this episode? And so in my head, I was like, okay, well, I watched it with my mom, so it was before 1999. And everything has been that way. She's never seen me in this life. She never saw me finish school. She never saw me get married or have kids or get published for the first time. She's never seen anything because he took her from me. And I've tried so hard to forgive him. And I still just can't. My sister is finally putting a marker on his grave and asked if I wanted to have any say in it. And I told her I've never been to his grave. I didn't go to his funeral. I know where he's buried. He's in our family cemetery in West Virginia, but I've never been there. And I don't think I'll ever go. My mom and my brother were cremated. Her brother and his wife handled all of the arrangements. I was still underage, and they were horrible, horrible people and took everything. I mean, it was already a sensationalized story, even though this was before the days of the 24-hour news cycle. You know, it wasn't blasted on CNN and Fox News and all these things because it didn't exist yet. No GoFundMes were set up to make sure we were okay. You know, and none of these things happened. We were just suddenly on our own. No one wanted me because I wasn't going to come with any money. You know, I was about to turn 18 and I wouldn't be receiving Social Security. So I was on my own at 17 years old, and they let it happen. And further, they took my mom and brother's ashes. I have no idea where they ended up. I don't have a graveside that I can go to on the anniversary each year, or on Mother's Day, or her birthday, or any of the things that you would normally go and do. But the one thing that does make me feel better is that she always told me not to buy her flowers after she died, to give them to her while she was living and she could enjoy them. And the day that it happened, I had gone and bought her a dozen roses at the grocery store. And they were still sitting on the table when they came and failed her. So at least I got to give her flowers while she was living. There were so many times that someone could have done something and could have helped. And they didn't. And there were so many times when she could have packed us up and left, and she just wasn't strong enough. And the one time that she was, that was the result. And for some reason, my sister and I were left here to figure it all out. You would think that 25 years would be long enough to grieve it and move on and get over it. But apparently it's not. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but apparently it's going to be at least one more year.
That was a sad story. May God continue to strengthen her and her sister. It must have been hell for them. That was a chaos caused by one selfish man who wanted to eat his cake and have it. He probably wasn't acting right and must have refused to make the necessary changes, but he expected the woman to put up with his excesses and remain in the marriage. Never take a threat to life lightly. If you are in a marriage or in a relationship where your partner threatens to take your life, find a way to live and make sure you live quietly. Live and find protection. Protect yourself. Don't just wake up and announce that you're leaving. No, you might put your life at risk. Your life might be in danger because you don't know how the man is going to react. Plan your exit. Take time to plan it. Leave when this man is least expecting you to leave. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you would love to watch a video of men telling on other men on how they hate women, click this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.